Well, just a few hours later, and I've got another video for you. It's James Yoder, Michigan Football Report, Chat Sports. As I was putting my kids to bed, I got another ESPN and Yahoo Sports articles have dropped on Connor Stalions. So thought I'd just come down here to the spare bedroom / wife's office / workout room and give you some thoughts off the cuff. Hey, just to exchange one or two text messages, two people, to see if I can get any inside information. I think I have one minor scoop, but nothing substantial here for you. But just some general thoughts or to catch you up on what we now know here on Tuesday p.m. Coming up almost on 11 o'clock Eastern time here as I'm filming this. A little prior to that. We'll probably publish right around 11 as I'll get it out as soon as I film. So what we know, ESPN, Pete Thamel, that scumbag, and Adam Rittenberg, their Big Ten guy, and then the Yahoo Sports guys shortly after published basically the same thing, all claiming, again, sources with, no one putting their name on it. And really, frankly, no one saying anything actually was done truly wrong. I mean, all we know right now is that this guy, Connor Stalions, allegedly, of course, has bought tickets to 30-plus Big Ten games and now more games outside of the Big Ten. So what these articles are saying is that schools have records, and now they're turning these over to ESPN, that he bought tickets, Stalions did, to the 2021 and 2022 SEC championship games. So obviously, to scout and steal signals for Georgia or Alabama or anybody like that. It didn't seem to do very well since Michigan got their butt kicked in 2021. It didn't seem like they knew any signals at all of Georgia. And in fact, Kirby Smart himself today said that he didn't notice anything different going on or didn't think that Michigan knew any signals from that game. It kind of came across as like, well, if they knew them, it surely didn't help them. But nevertheless, that was kind of how he put it out there. According to these reports, 12 of 13 other Big Ten schools, so one missing, I guess, have said that they have records of Stalions buying a ticket there. Now, outside of that, it does seem that these are NCAA, and state institutions. They're just giving away ticket information and proprietary information on people's ticket purchases to ESPN and Yahoo Sports reporters. That doesn't sit right with me, but I get it. But it seems like that everyone's willing to come forward with private information is a little bit unsettling, nevertheless. Also, Stalions apparently bought tickets to the 2022 Tennessee-Kentucky game. And this is right after, a week or two after Tennessee beat Alabama last year on that last-second field goal. And outside of the Alabama-Georgia, if it's just the SEC title game, also apparently bought tickets to Clemson games and Oregon games, at least in the 2022 season. Not to mention, the Ohio State-Penn State game this past weekend that apparently nobody showed up for. So that's what we know from these articles. Before I continue, I've got a lot to talk about here. Turn it over to you guys in the comments here on the Michigan Football Report YouTube. How concerned are you? Another hit piece dropped. This is what, the third, fourth article in 7 days now since the middle of last week. It was first Wednesday, I believe it was. Then the naming of Stalions on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So fourth article with some details on this Connor Stalions operation. I'm going to give you my opinion. I think I've got some insight right now on what's going to happen with the NCAA and Jim Harbaugh. But let me know, how concerned are you? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 highest. Comment down below. Oh, I'm quick in the neck there. All right, so continuing on what we know, and this is not necessarily in the articles, but I just received a couple texts that I feel like the sources I've used for information over the years would have as good of chance as anybody outside of Jim Harbaugh himself and the coaching staff of maybe knowing some of this information. So apparently Connor Stalions' computer and his university-issued iPhone have been turned over to the NCAA, right? As early as last week. So this has happened, at least 5-6 days ago at this point, maybe as early as Wednesday or Thursday of last week is what I've been told. So Stalions' computer, his iPhone have been turned over. From what I've been led to believe, and this is just me kind of connecting dots here, is Michigan clearly looked at it before they turned it over to the NCAA. They made a copy. They want to know what it was on there, and they feel confident that, at least from what they found on Stalions' computer, because university-issued computer, et cetera, they just kind of confiscated it or however it goes, they didn't find anything that they think the NCAA would, drop everything and claim a death penalty on or just cancel the Michigan season or anything like that. So that's good news. maybe the bad news or just the news is it does sound like, and I saw this reported elsewhere, so this isn't a source from me, but it's being reported elsewhere now that Michigan is expecting the NCAA to be in town in Ann Arbor this week, as early as Thursday, maybe Friday. Now, we heard last week that they expected a report Michigan did from the NCAA last Thursday or Friday, and clearly that never came. But being reported that Michigan is expecting and has been contacted by the NCAA to put together a time for Michigan football, Michigan Athletic Department, and University of Michigan, top officials, I'm sure going all the way up to Santa Ono, Board Manual, Jim Harbaugh, and others, maybe Board of Trustees, Board of Regents, if you will, to meet and go over what evidence that Michigan is maybe, the NCAA has on Michigan with this whole Connor Stalions situation. Also in the ESPN and Yahoo articles, I think it was the ESPN one, talk of the Big Ten stepping in this season. This is ESPN, according to the Big Ten sportsmanship policy, Commissioner Tony Petitti, nice name, Petitti, has exclusive authority to see if offensive actions have occurred and to impose discipline. And the policy lists integrity of the competition as fundamental elements that members uphold. The ESPN article also went on to say that the Big Ten would want a full picture of what the facts actually were if they were to act. And that sounds like if they means this season. So apparently the Big Ten does have the opportunity to do what they want this season, which is, I guess, includes shutting down Michigan's 2023 season if they think this is systemic all the way up to Jim Harbaugh, that he was directing, this operation. He was funding it, even from his own pocket, to get people to travel to games and film video. The other thing in the article that though they said is one of the games, and I don't know if it's which game it was, maybe it's the Tennessee game, who knows, that they've got in-stadium surveillance of the seats. I guess must be a pretty good security system of over an hour video of someone kind of just sitting there and holding their iPhone up, filming the opposite sideline. Now, I'll tell you what, I sat in these kind of same seats. I had really good seats to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, 44 through 3-yard line, halfway up, just like the perfect seats, TV view. And I went back to some of my videos that I took. You can't see. I mean, I have an iPhone 14 at the time. I've got an iPhone 15 Pro Max, not the cheap ones, the 3 cameras. You can't zoom across the field from that far away. We're talking about 300 feet away, maybe even longer, further than that. You just can't with video. Now, with the camera, you can. With a camera, you can. And that's maybe a difference. But if you're taking videos, the zoom isn't as strong. So, I question whether or not any evidence gained was super valuable. But nevertheless, this is not, what's being alleged is nothing that you or I just couldn't do at any time, right? I could have been filming that Notre Dame sideline, Ohio State sideline, the entire game, and it'd be no different than what Connor Stalions' group of friends or whatever it is were alleged to do here. So I struggle to think that this is something that Michigan's entire program is going to go downhill for. And I think inside the University of Michigan building, from at least what we know now, I think there is at least some confidence that this is a overzealous young staffer going rogue. I said this, I think, in the video today, earlier today, maybe it was a couple days ago, can't remember, but it was today, as a matter of fact, the one we put out about, honestly, 5 hours ago, 4 or 5 hours ago now, is that a lot of times in professional workplaces, if you can stand out, if you can get an edge, if you can make it look like to your boss or to the decision makers on your career that you've got an advantage, that you're smarter than everybody else, that you can accomplish things, it wouldn't be surprising to me if this Connor Stalions trying to get a bigger and better job with Michigan didn't have this persona that he is just some military background sign stealing savant, and he went and he used these people sitting in games to film things to try and get better at his job behind Jim Harbaugh's back with no one else knowing. And maybe I could be wrong on that, right? We could come out and find out this is the biggest scandal in the history of college athletics, but I think it's more likely that Stalions was acting alone. And if that's the case, then it doesn't seem like Michigan's going to face any death penalty or Jim Harbaugh will be fired over this. And I certainly don't think the Big Ten is going to step in and do anything to their golden goose this season. Couple more things from the ESPN article before I kind of talk a little further. Big Ten has 2 categories for discipline. One is fines up to $10,000 and suspensions of no more than 2 games. So if they stepped in on that, they could suspend anybody. Jim Harbaugh, it doesn't seem like it's players, but any of the coaches, 2 games. So that could be Purdue, that could be Penn State. We'll see. or even later in the year, I don't know, or even next season. The second is major disciplinary action requires approval from the executive committee made up of representatives from different Big Ten schools who can deny proposed penalties from the Big Ten Conference or reduce them, but this committee cannot add to them. So the Big Ten themselves can say, hey, we want to suspend Harbaugh for a year, 6 months, whatever it is. This committee can agree to them or reduce them, but they can't say, hey, 6 months, 6 games, that's not enough. We want 12 games or a year, anything like that. But they cannot do that. So we'll see how things shake out. I expect that once all this news is kind of 5-6 days of just overwhelming amount of stories and hit pieces that Michigan come out, I think this is going to start to die down a little bit, right? Michigan's got the bye week, college football playoff rankings come out next week. I think it's going to start to die down because all the evidence is out there, and maybe that's a good thing. And we won't hear anything worse unless there's some sort of absolutely damning evidence that Jim Harbaugh himself or Michigan football coaching staff members were involved in funding or organizing this scheme of college kids or whoever going and filming games and filming signs of opposing and future, in this case, Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia, maybe Oregon, future opponents. Clearly, they didn't film TCU. That I can tell you after what happened in that game, giving up 51 points and J.J. McCarthy throwing 2 pick sixes. I'll tell you what, listening to some Michigan football interviews from players today, I do think that the players are going to be galvanized by this. It's going to put steel in their spine. It's going to be an us against the world mentality. A lot of haters in the comments this week, last week, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State fans. Speaking of Penn State, we're going to get to them in a second. So if you're us against the world, you're a Michigan fan, give me a like in the video. Let's keep growing this thing, putting some reasonable thinking Michigan football videos out there in the world. And, kind of drown out some of those everything is sky is falling, videos that I'm seeing everywhere from opposing fan bases and even some Michigan football podcasters and YouTubers. How about James Franklin? Basically the worst offense in college football history. I saw him out there Saturday. Now he's blaming the Stein stealing from Michigan on why he's had such a poor showing and got blown out by Michigan so many times. Of his quotes today, asked about this in particular, he said, "You feel like you call an unpredictable call, and they're in the perfect defense for it." And he referenced, a 4th and 1 play where Michigan's in a cover 2 or something like that. And it was funny because someone tweeted this out, which I thought was hilarious. Do you remember that fake field goal that Penn State had? I think it was 2 years ago, where it was one of the worst play calls in history. There was like the snapper stood up and tried to throw it to the kicker who ran, and it was crazy. It's like, yeah, that was so tough to stomp out. It was that your kicker can't outrun, Rod Moore or Junior Colson, or I think even Dax Hill on that team. So give me a break on that one. He said something about being in a 4th and 1 and Michigan not lining up in a jumbo package and being back in cover 2. Well, maybe your play calls and your 4th down conversions just suck. I mean, you went 1 of 16, I think it was, on 3rd down against Ohio State, James Franklin. Were they stealing calls? Stealing signs? Do they know your play calls? Or do you just have a pretty rudimentary offense and it always had poor quarterback play? I don't know. Which seems more likely? Can't wait for Michigan to go into Happy Valley and just drop 60 on them or something like that. Just absolutely kick Penn State's butt. I think this is going to galvanize this team, and they're going to want to go into Penn State, go into Ohio State, whose coaches are clearly publicly talking trash like James Franklin, privately talking trash like Ryan Day, going behind everyone's back talking to Pete Thamel, and trying to out Michigan for this. I think Michigan's going to be galvanized and wanting to kick some absolute butts. Us against the world is the mentality of this team. Think about Jim Harbaugh's future. Did he know anything? That's going to be the biggest talking point here. Did Harbaugh know anything? What did he know? When did he know it? And what can be proved? Other than that, I'm not sure what else we can say about Jim Harbaugh. If he knew something, he's clearly going to get fired, I think, if he had involved in it in any way. Does this interfere with his contract? Bye week this week. Expecting contract talks. I know Harbaugh's guy, Todd Anson, had tweeted out some along the lines of, Harbaugh being promised a date of when a contract will be done. I'm actually going to look it up really quick here because I forget what date that he said. But does Harbaugh himself, does he get fired? If you know something, does he get sick of this stuff? Are 2 ongoing NCAA investigations? I'm not sure. We'll have to kind of see how it shakes out. Let me go find this tweet from him. What did he say? Well, I don't see it at the moment. But nevertheless, it was sometime in early November in this bye week that goes up to November 4th when Michigan plays Purdue. Night game, by the way, at home. Harbaugh still looking at the NFL. Is that his best option? They don't have to worry about things like sign stealing or NCAA recruiting violations or anything like that. It's going to be an interesting bye week. It's going to be an interesting week next week as Michigan doesn't play now for 11 more days. And in between then, the first college football playoff ranking is going to come out where Michigan's probably going to be ranked number 1 or number 2. I actually think it's going to be Ohio State, Michigan 1, 2, and maybe the Buckeyes are number 1 because they had those 2 top 20, top 15 type wins over Penn State and Notre Dame. One more question for you guys here. Do you think Stalions acted alone? Do you think Connor Stalions, with buying tickets to 30-plus games across 13 Big Ten teams, SEC championship games, Oregon, Tennessee, and maybe more Clemson, did he act alone? Give me a Y for yes and N for no in the comments. Some things I'm mad about here, right? I'm just like mad, like I'm freaking out, flipping tables. I'm just kind of perturbed is that there's still no evidence that anyone did anything wrong. And these articles are coming out as if like this is a smoking gun. It's not illegal to buy tickets to games. It's not against any violations of NCAA rule to buy tickets to games. And I know the optics are bad. I understand that. I'm not naive. I'm not denying that it's likely that Connor Stalions himself did something. And there's still not a single shred of evidence nor a single person who's come forward in any facet across any of these hit piece articles that said Jim Harbaugh or anyone on the staff was involved or knew anything. And I've seen all the videos on Twitter of, oh gosh, Stalions was standing by Harbaugh, and oh man, Ohio State called an audible, and Michigan's entire sideline started doing that. Well, they do that anytime there's an audible. You got to be kidding me. That's just standard play. But I'm just kind of upset that a lot of these rival fan bases are just running with, oh, Michigan's guilty, Harbaugh did anything just because there's an article out by Pete Thamel. Remember, the guy who got duped by Manti Te'o's fake girlfriend. Couple more thoughts here, but before I do, I want to make sure you guys know you can subscribe to the channel as we are putting out Michigan football videos on almost daily basis. Sometimes we have to take a pause here and there, but putting out as many videos as we can. And I think you're going to like what you see from the show if it's your first time watching. Usually we've got a full studio and graphics and everything, but hey, it's almost 11 o'clock Eastern, filming this from the guest office workout room here at home. Thinking back, Matt Weiss, computer crimes. Police raid his house. Haven't heard a single thing about that. Is it possible Matt Weiss got raided and he was involved and he's the rat now? I mean, I don't know. But it does seem a little perturbed, or a little not perturbed, it's not the right word, a little odd that Matt Weiss had this whole thing. We got fired from Michigan. The police come to his house, investigated. And this is, police investigations are public knowledge. We haven't heard a single thing about that. And then this drops. Computer crimes, right? Where are they storing these videos? There's a lot of things connecting here. I'm just interested to see what comes out if it's just not like circular logic. Everything's connected in life. If all of a sudden that Matt Weiss, police raid and arrest, I guess, from January doesn't come back and have something to do with what's going on right now with Connor Stalions and this Michigan football program. I think in a good way, if Michigan got rid of him because he was involved in something like this, that is a good sign for Michigan, at least for this season. Although if your offensive coordinator was involved in this in some way, I'm sure Michigan's going to have to vacate some wins from the past 2 seasons. What's next for this Michigan team? I'm sure you're going to get a hit piece like this, something new every couple days going forward. But from what it seems out there is that Michigan is expecting a meeting in person with the NCAA this week at sometime Thursday or Friday. But that's what they thought that last week about getting evidence, and it never came. So who the heck knows what's going to happen? I'll be putting together thoughts, reaching out to sources all night tonight and into tomorrow, and try and put out a video for you guys as soon as I have something new that's substantial, and hopefully it's something that you're not going to get anywhere else. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. 19 minutes and 10 seconds of James Yoder. Till then, go Blue.